Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the April 27th, 2023 regular board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is within the territory of the Seashelt and Squamish Nation. First order of business is to adoption of the agenda. So we have an amended agenda before us. Is there any errors or omissions in the agenda? No, seeing none. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Director Toth, seconded Director Gabius. All those in favor? Thank you. We have an agenda. The first item of business for us now is into the minutes, and we consider the regular board meeting minutes of April 6, 2023, which is Annex A, pages 5 to 10. And let's see if I can get there. Okay. Is there any errors or omissions in those minutes? No? Seeing none then. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Yes, I see a mover. If I have a seconder? Yes, thank you, Director Toth. No discussions, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Number 3 now on there is the special board meeting minutes of April 20th, 2023, which is Annex B, pages 11 to 12. Okay, is there any errors or omissions in those? No, don't hear none. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? I see a mover, I see a seconder. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Great, got that one done. We have then, therefore, no business arising from the minutes, no unfinished business. We have no presentation and delegations. So we're into item number 4, which is Committee of the Whole, recommendations numbers 1 to 6 of April 6, 2023, Annex C, pages 13 to 14. Before we adopt those recommendations as a block, would any directors like to pull any of the recommendations for separate consideration? No? Okay, I see none. Can I have a motion to adopt then? Yes, Director Toth, Director Bax. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion's carried. Let's see. Going too fast here. Let me get my check here. We're now down to item number 5, if I'm following okay here. Director McMahon.
Yes, I just have one very minor correction to the minutes. I'm just finding my way. Page 17, recommendation number 10, first bullet. The first word should be training. So it just needs to remove minute, and it reads training and advice on minute taking, etc.
Okay, thank you. We've made those corrections then. Okay, can I have a motion to then adopt the minutes as amended? Director McMahon, seconded. Director Gabius. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, that passes. Let me check that one off. Okay, we're moving to item number 6, which is Finance Committee recommendations number 1 to 4 of April 20th, 23, which is Annex E, pages 19 to 20. Okay. Before we adopt those recommendations as a block, would any directors like to pull any of those recommendations for separate consideration? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adopt those Finance Committee recommendations? Director McMahon, motion, seconder. Director Bax. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. That one's done. Going to run out of things to do pretty quick here. We're now on to item 6A, which has been added to our agenda, and it's Committee of the Whole Recommendations number 8 to 10 of April 27th, 2023, and it's pages 22A to B. Before we adopt the recommendations in a block, would any directors like to pull any of the recommendations for separate consideration? Seeing none, can I have a motion then to adopt those? Director McMahon, seconded Director Bax. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, that passes. Thank you. We're now on to, let me catch up on my computer here. We're on to item number 7, which is placement of notice on title, Annex F, pages 21 to 24. Okay, I have that. I do believe this will be introduced by our chief building official, Mr. Kennett. If you could introduce them, I think we'll deal with them one at a time, so number 1 first, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a general introduction, the report recommends placement of notice on title for 2 properties for reasons outlined in the report. We understand the owner and or agent of one of the properties is here and may have comments to make on this. And with me today is Chief Building Official Kennett, and we're pleased to answer any questions that the board may have about the report. Thank you.
Okay, there are 2 different areas. So this first one is Area B. Is there anything, any comments, questions on B? Do you have to read them? I need to read them? Okay.
Sorry, isn't there an introduction where you ask for anyone to speak?
Yeah, we do have someone that's going to speak, number 2. Okay, so we do have the owner and Mr. Seal and his representative, Mr. Manchnowski. Did I get that right? I understand. People normally call me Chester for some reason. Chester? I can do that. That's easy. I understand you'd like to speak to the notice on title for number 2. Yes, please, if you could come forward and we'll get the mic working for you there. It's the second one. We're talking about the second one now.
This is great. Usually I have to get a 14-year-old to come and help me with these things, so I appreciate this. Thank you. Before we start, if I may, I'd like to thank on behalf of myself and my client, John Seal, the help that we've been given through the building officials here. This has gone on for a while. It's been a complicated and convoluted task, certainly from my side of things. This thing started with basically some bad advice and some bad contracting, and I was brought in because an auxiliary building, basically a pole barn, was constructed without a permit. I was brought in to have a look at it and see if I can regularize this situation. So, of course, when I had a look at it, there's a whole bunch of things which you need to sort out. One of which was the actual structural adequacy of what was done, and it wasn't. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be redone on it. But part of the issue also was to produce some drawings that were accurate, and part of that was to get a survey to make sure that the thing was actually where it said it was. And that led to finding out that the building was actually placed onto the neighbour's property by a metre or 2, just to add to everything. So the first issue that's had to be dealt with was, first of all, to have it on Mr. Seal's property, which part of he didn't own. So there have been lengthy but very fruitful negotiations with the neighbouring landowner, and we managed to get an agreement to do a tiny land swap to enable the building to actually stand on Mr. Steele's property, which I wasn't quite sure how we were going to deal with it otherwise, but you know, thankfully the neighbours have been very helpful on that. So we now have the possibility of moving ahead with, first of all, a subdivision application, because that's what we need to do, because we're changing a lot line slightly. And I actually have the application for planning with me today, so we can actually go ahead with that now. Hopefully it shouldn't be too big a deal. As I said, we're just moving a little lot line and just giving ourselves a few meters for the building to sit on. It is in the agricultural land reserve, which means another department that has to be looked at. But again, I believe that it should be a formality, but you never know with these things, and I'm certainly not anticipating it being a formality. But that's where I'm going with this. So once we've got that approved through planning, we'll go ahead and register the new lot lines and make sure that's all done properly. And after that, I'll go ahead with actually applying for a proper building permit. I have the draft of that. Again, it's ready to go. It just needs to be gone over with the Chief Building Inspector just to make sure we're all on track and everything's correct on that. But it's ready to go. I've made the building secure, so it's not going to fall down on anybody at the moment, which perhaps it wouldn't have in the first place, but I tend to be a bit conservative, so it's always embarrassing on your resume when one of your clients' buildings falls down. So it is secure and safe at the moment, and luckily we're moving into the summer months now, so the weather is not going to be quite as much of a factor on it. But again, we've been working very closely with now Brian and previously Alan, who's been a godsend on this stuff. So that's pretty much where we are at the moment. It has taken a long time. Part of that has been my fault because unfortunately I get sick, so that screwed things up for a little bit. But I think we have a plan going forward, and as I said, I intend to make some submissions today to planning and have a chat with the building official as well, just to make sure we're on the right track and can move forward. I understand the process that you guys wanted to move ahead. We don't have an objection to it. I mean, you know, it's perfectly reasonable for you to do that. And it's not the end of the world should a notice of title go on because the owner wishes to stay there and he's not trying to sell or anything like that. We just go on to get the problem solved. But I'm just suggesting that we are moving along. You know, obviously you must do what you must do. I just wanted to be, clear with the council that this isn't one of those where we're fighting tooth and nail not to do something. Certainly not under my watch. So if council has any questions, I'd be glad to, answer them too.
Thank you very much for that. I asked if we have questions. I believe Director White, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm aware of Chester's professional background.
Oh God!
Because it involves the town of Gibsons, but I think he skipped over that part. So it'd be helpful for all directors to know about.
Well, if I have to admit to this, yes. I was actually the building inspector in Gibsons for a while, but I've done my civic duty now, and I'm back to raping and pillaging the civil population now as a consulting engineer again. So.
Good, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Silas.
Director McMahon, please. Yes, I'm delighted to hear that the building's not going to fall down or have to be moved, or that there is a process. I think for reasons of prudence, it makes sense to put the notice on title because it can be removed as soon as all of the regulations are met. But really glad to hear from you, and very interesting how these things happen.
Yes, unfortunately too often. But,
Sounds like he's hired the right guy to fix it, though.
well, we haven't got there yet. So.
Director Henderson?
Thank you, Chair. I too can speak to Mr. Mankowitz's background, not the raping and pillaging part, but the question I have is more about what is your contemplated timeline to get the work done, to get in compliance with subdivisions and agreements with neighbors and construction?
After today, it's really entirely up to planning and the building department. Building department, I expect it to be about 6 weeks for their part. It's a pretty straightforward, small building, needs some structural repairs and the rest of it done. A lot of it is done already. I'll be signing off on that. I don't anticipate a problem with that. The part that is likely to take more time is through planning. And God love them, they're really busy and up to their eyes in it at the moment. And there are probably, I think it's about 3 or 4 bodies, like Modi and the A&R people, who need to be referred to as part of that process. And, after my recent experience putting in a water system for the Salvation Army down in Langdale, which I thought was going to be a 3-month process, and that was nearly 3 years ago, I've given up predicting. As I said, I don't see any, kind of unforeseen delays on this, because it is basically a very small issue to deal with. Now that we've got consent from the neighbours. I mean, if I didn't have that, then I couldn't speak.
It's fair to say within a few months.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So I think depending on how quickly it goes through the planning part and stamped,
No, that's fine. Thank you.
and that's the only thing that will hold it up right now.
Thank you. Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously not my area, but one thing I did want to comment on is that in the past we have looked at deferring these decisions, particularly when we know that the property owner is working to correct the issue. So, happy to defer to the area director for this one, but we don't actually have to place a notice on title with this particular property today.
Thank you, Director Toth. Director, McMahon, do you have a question of the?
Just quick question for staff. Is there a cost associated to the property owner with removing the notice on title? Thank you.
It's approximately $100 to remove it.
Okay. Director Henderson?
On the other side of that, is there to staff, is there a cost in terms of our manpower to putting the notice on title?
Staff?
There's labor involved, but there's no fee associated with it, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'll refer the directors to page, 21, where we have some recommendations there. Is there anybody else in the gallery who would like to speak on behalf of either of the 2 property owners? Is there anything in the gallery? No hands up in the gallery? No? Okay. Thank you. Got a little note here to help me. It was cool. Okay. I'm looking for motions. Director McMahon?
Well, as we were not asked to defer the notice on title, and we are following proper procedure, and heaven knows how long the ALR could take, or the ALC, to get back on this, I am happy to move staff's recommendations on page 21.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Sorry. Yes, okay. Is there any further discussions? Okay, I will then call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? No opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation. This is a learning experience for all of us, and it was very interesting.
I wish you didn't have to learn this, but
Yes, me
I
too.
appreciate the time and the
Yeah, and
interest.
thank you for coming.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So, we're moving on then to item number 8, which is Annex G, pages 25 to 32, and it's Community Recreation Roof Renewal and Half Moon Bay Fire Protection Rescue Apparatus Replacement Alternative Approval Process. And the corporate officer, I think, will introduce this for us.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is coming forward to establish a timeline and a process to seek elector approval for long-term borrowing for 2 capital projects that were approved in our budget process this year, specifically the roof renewal projects for the Gibsons and Area Community Center, as well as the Seashelt Aquatic Center. And we also have a process going forward for fire rescue apparatus for the Half Moon Bay Fire Service. So in order to initiate this approval process, the board must approve the elector response forms, which are included in the staff report, as well as the determination of the number of eligible electors within the areas that are subject to this process. And the board must also establish the deadline for receiving responses. Staff recommendations have been provided in that regard and are provided here for you in this report for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Does any of the directors have questions on this? Director Bax? Director Henderson. Oh, sorry. It's kind of hard to see his hand in the background there. Yes, thank you. Director Henderson.
Thank you, Director Bax. Well, I need to be first, but two things really. I read this and went, I think it's more than a community recreation roof renewal, and in fact, in reviewing it, it's 2 projects there plus the Half Moon Bay Fire. So I think when we go out to the electorate, we need to be careful. We do describe it as essentially 3 projects, 2 projects under one loan bylaw, I guess, and the other under the second one. The other is perhaps philosophical, but I'm generally opposed to AAPs. I think it actually serves the community better if we do spend the extra time and money to do a referendum. It allows us to get out and actually talk about the benefits of doing this, where AAPs tend to be, let's just hope that not enough people complain and then we can go ahead. So I do recognize there's costs involved, but I suggest that there's a benefit to doing it, doing the more fulsome referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Would staff have any comments on that?
I'll just note that there will be a communication plan put forward and very comprehensive information packages that will include project descriptions as well as financial impacts in each service area. So it will be clearly defined in terms of the recreation project that indeed we will be doing 2 roof replacements. They're within the same service, which is why they've been packaged under the same loan authorization bylaw. And similarly, the Half Moon Bay project, that will be a completely separate response form and information process.
Thank you. Director Henderson, I still see your hand up. Did you have a follow-up question, or?
Since I left my hand up, I do. Just to anchor, it's, my main point is I think a referendum is a better approach. Communication is different when you have to talk in favor of something than it is when you're talking to say, just don't bother responding. So this is about the nature of how we talk about things. We should be proud of what we've decided, as painful as it is, and I'd like to be able to talk that way. An AAP doesn't really lend itself to that, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put my hand down.
Yes, I will go to Director Bax now, please.
Well, he's brought up a question now. I'd like to know what we've done this type of thing before, AAPs and referendums, correct? And can you tell me, do you know how much each one of those things costs? What's the price difference?
I can answer the first part. Yes, we've done lots of both of those.
Yeah?
And I will go to staff for the second part of that question, please.
So first, I'll point out that when these projects were contemplated by the board during pre-budget, the board did make the decision that we would go to long-term borrowing. And at that time, the board did resolve that we would do that through alternative approval process, which is why this is coming forward. And the process is done in such a way that if we do receive beyond the threshold of 10% of the electors, we must go to referendum in order to move forward or abandon the borrowing. So there is an opportunity for that if we receive enough elector forms in opposition. Is there a follow-up question to that?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, the cost. Okay, so the cost of the referendum will actually depend on the service. So if I look at community recreation, I think we're looking at approximately 25,000 eligible electors. So we would essentially be running a full-on election in all of the electoral areas minus Area A, plus the town of Gibsons and the district of Sechelt, and that would be in the range of, I'd say, $150,000 perhaps, if I look back to what we just spent on our municipal election. Whereas an AAP is, the cost implications are really just advertising, and there is some staff time involved, but we usually absorb that through general government.
Yes, follow-up, Director Bax, please.
I move we accept the recommendations on page 25.
Thank you. I see a seconder. Now, we have it on the floor. Any discussion? Director McMahon?
Yes, I'm just going to say that while there are downsides to AAP processes, this is fairly routine. We are doing maintenance on a building, and we are acquiring equipment that's needed to run the fire service. If this were controversial, if it represented a significant change in policy, or if it was an expansion of our services, then certainly I would want it to go to referendum, but I don't think it's merited. So thank you.
Okay, seeing no further hands up, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Yes, Director Henderson, would you like that recorded? Okay, thank you. We've looked after that one. We now move to item number 9, which is Office of the CAO Monthly Report, and somehow the verbal report got amended. I guess you must have changed your mind somewhere.
Despite the Herculean efforts of our recording secretary, this report is coming to you via my mouth instead of a piece of paper. Post-budget over the last month, and I'm taken back to the last CAO report where I was asked, what's on your plate? What are your priorities for the next couple of months? And I believe my answer was water, water, water. So it won't be so surprising that there will be a lot of water-related things in this brief update. Post-budget, though, now that the budget's approved, over the last month there's been a flurry of work in all departments on implementation of approved budget items. I was recently had the pleasure of attending AVIC with several of our board members in Nanaimo. A lot of my time over the last month has been working with our partners in Gibsons and Sechelt and Shishel Nation on the upcoming Water Summit 3, as we look to take some of the work that was done at Summit 2 on shared values and turn that into how we can use those to inform short, medium, and long-term projects. A lot of work being done on making sure Church Road is ready to go and that the licensing is in place for that. So we're ready to turn it on and have everything working properly in June. And a tremendous amount of work in general just being done with the hope that the weather isn't exactly the same as last year, or it isn't the same as the year before, but running on the assumption that it's exactly the same, ensuring that we've got the ability to protect as many liters behind that dam at Chapman as we possibly can, so that we minimize the impacts of drought if we get similar conditions to the last 2 years. And right now, there's a lot of reasons to feel confident that we're in a far better situation this year than we were last year, and that makes me feel a little bit better. The development approvals project review, the interim report's coming to the board very soon, and that's been a really exciting project that has been really positive to see unfolding. And just a couple of last things to note. With the release of the findings of the ground penetrating radar by the Shishel Nation last week, we have joined with our counterparts at the District of Sechelt, the town of Gibsons, and the school district to leave our flags at half-mast for 40 days, 1 day for each of the children that were found, and we recognize there's so many more. And while that's a small gesture, it is at least a meaningful gesture of friendship, respect, and support. And tomorrow we'll be observing the National Day of Mourning, which is April 28th, and we'll have our flags down at half-staff for that as well. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Excellent amended report. Is there any questions from directors? Yes, Director McMahon.
Our next water status report will be coming to us, I'm hoping, May 11th, Committee of the Whole.
Staff, yes?
And I'm hoping we'll have a report on the Church Road license, and I believe we just sent a letter to the province about the siphons.
I'll let the GM handle that one. I'm gonna guess. I want to guess though. I'm keen to guess. True, true, and true. But let me see.
Director Brown?
That is
Or
correct.
GM, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, the CAO is correct. We're going to cover all those things in the water update, so appreciate identifying those, and yes, they're very key to all the elements of the water supply update.
Could you just remind me when you said that update would be coming?
May 11th, Committee of the
May
Whole.
11th?
Yeah.
Thank you. Wanted to write that down. Okay. Any further questions? No. Seeing none, we then will move on to motions. Item 10, motions for which notice has been given. It's Annex H, page 33 to 34. It's on the SCRD regional water system. And Director Henderson, I believe you would like to talk to this, please?
Read my notice of motion. It's been published on pages 33 and 34 of the agenda. I would just comment to the board that from the work that I've done and from what others have been feeding to me or talking to me about, we're not good at doing enough to get the real story out to the community. The public doesn't have the information they deserve, and there's a lot of people, me included, that don't share the comments that things will be better this year, things and I guess I'd also add, I don't think it's our role to hope for the best. It's our job to plan for the worst. And so I'm concerned that what we've received to date is the best efforts. I accept that of the people preparing the information, but we need to do more. And that is why my motion itemizes some of my concerns, some of the things that I know are being worked on, but we need, I don't know why we're waiting another 2 weeks before we get a report on water. That should be the first order of business on every agenda of this board. So we're sitting here today, we haven't had a report for at least 2 weeks, and I, for one, have no idea what progress we've made. I got an email this morning that we've written to the province, I believe yesterday or perhaps the day before. But, you know, what about the other things that are on our list? Where do we stand with those? So my motion is really to come up with, or to ensure that we get the fundamental data about the possibilities, so that the public know what, because in the worst case scenario, we've got a lot of work as individuals, as taxpayers, to prepare for this. And I think that we owe it as this board to provide the community with all the data and let them make the decisions on whether they're too conservative or maybe they're even more worried than we are. I can go on, but I think perhaps I'd stop there, and I'd welcome comments from the rest of the board at this stage. So, and I will, for the record, move my motions as presented. So we can
Okay.
see if there's a seconder.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to those motions? Yes, Director Toth. Thank you. So the motion is on the floor now. Is there any comments on the motions? Directors? Yes, Director Toth had his hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to speak too much to the motions. I think they speak for themselves. But given that they are two different reports, bodies, whatever, I would ask that the motions be severed and voted on separately.
Would that be a motion? Do we need a motion to do that? I can just decide? Okay. Then that is, we can do that. But I would like to ask the corporate officer if we sever the motions, should we discuss the motions one at a time then? Or can we discuss all of them at once? We'll discuss the motions one at a time.
It's probably going to work for the board to address them individually
Okay.
if we're dividing them.
Okay, thank you. So, with that done, I approve that. That's what we need to do then. And we can talk about, let me go back now. Okay, so there's the first one, which doesn't have a number, but it's number 1. And
It is.
oh, there it is, yes. No later than, so the bottom of page 33, number 1, no later than May 15th, it starts out. So I will welcome comments on that motion. And Director Stamford.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to find out from staff what kind of staff time or impact this would have on their current work plan, and whether it's all done in-house or whether we need to have outside consultants work on this.
Staff, GM Brown?
Yes, thank you, Chair, for the question. Although we said we wouldn't talk about the second motion at the same time, there are two different motions, and a majority of motion number 1 could be done in-house. Motion 2 would require consultants for the most part. With regard to the staff time, it would be significant, and it would be very helpful if the requests could be narrowed down somewhat as far as specific timelines, because all of those to be done by May 15th would require a significant amount of staff time and changing the priorities of staff. This is the busiest time of year for them. Their utility bills are coming in next week. We have the number of projects that we're trying to get on by mid-June. So to respond to all these requests, it's would take significant time, as well as change their priorities, what they've been assigned to do. So if there's more specificity of the requests for information that has not been previously provided, it would be helpful for staff.
Thank you. Director White.
I'll just speak to my perception of last year. I thought there was, I wasn't on the board at the time, but I followed the board, and I found there was, because of the serious water concerns that we continue to have, there was quite extensive and robust reporting on a regular basis on water, and it was kind of a constant every. I mean, other directors could speak to this more than I can, but my impression was it was a constant at a regular feature of at least every maybe board meeting, if not a monthly committee meeting. And I see this as providing a framework. Needing more specificity concerns me, because it's very specific. Maybe it's too specific. Maybe, I mean, that might be, are there certain items in here that we just can't get the information on? But I mean, that would be a concern. But other than that, it seems, when I look at this framework for the reporting that would normally happen during a summer, at least comparing to last summer, it seems a lot of this is the kind of thing that was reported last year. But it seems like a reasonable proposal to just for the board to formally endorse a kind of reporting framework for the water reporting that we would normally get in a summer. Because I'm not going to say a drought. It's just it's the reality now in our summers. So.
Thank you very much. Could staff comment on that thought? In other words, would this be something similar to what we did report on regularly last year during the warmer summer months? Well, into fall too.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's definitely the plan to continue with a robust, comprehensive communication plan to the public on an ongoing basis. So that will certainly be done, and we're hopeful it can contain the elements that the board wishes to pass along to the public. So that's kind of what the specificity was requesting, is we're covering off a lot of the items that were in the draft motion, including in the last report on April 6th. So we're, again, just looking for clarity on what more you want in addition to what's already been provided.
Thank you. Yes, I was just reading it over, thinking about the April 6th report, so it's, yeah, I do recognize that most of them would have been in there. Thank you. Director McMahon.
Speaking to Director White's comments, we started last year with monthly reports, if I remember correctly, and then when the situation became serious, we asked for reports every meeting, and which was merited because it was a very serious situation. Obviously, I get a lot of people in my area asking me questions about water and asking me what we're doing. Nobody is asking me for more reports, and the level of detail of the technical information here is, I'm sure, of interest to some people, but most people are just asking me, are we going to have enough water? What are you doing to get more water online? And what are you doing for farmers and people who grow food? So some of this information would be very interesting, but our staff are really busy right now, and I would rather see them getting action on water than writing more reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Bax, please.
Yeah, I have to echo what Director McMahon said. It's interesting to see the depth of detail that's in this motion, and it's something that I think staff can look at and say that these are valid points to think about to pass. It's information that could be valid to some people, but I have every confidence in the reports that we're getting from staff and the work that they're doing. I don't want to try to micromanage them. I think allowing them to do the work, and I recognize that they're doing a great job. I imagine we're going to be getting monthly reports throughout the year and more when it's warranted. I can't back something that's just going to be more detailed reports. I'm really satisfied with the work that's been done, and I hope we can move ahead and secure our water system.
Thank you, Director Bax. Okay, there was no questions there. So Director Gabius, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I do understand the sentiment behind this motion. I think there is a lot of anxiety in the community, and people, you know, we had a tough summer last summer, and so people don't want to go through that again. I get that. We know that work is being done. We see the reports. We see so much information. I think what we need to focus on maybe is how we communicate it to the community. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like I feel like we need to find a way, whether it's a dashboard or it's like just at a glance, what we have, what we need, where we're at, so that people can just go somewhere and see it really clearly. Because there's lots of information, lots of different reports, and I can't expect my constituents to go through all of them. So perhaps something that we could do and that the board could help with is to help with staff, with communications, and with an infrastructure, help develop that template that we could use. So maybe like have a little subcommittee or something with a board rep and some staff where we can brainstorm and come up with some good ideas. So that's a thought.
Would staff have a comment on those?
Thank you for the question, and I think it was stated by our communications manager in this morning's meeting where we talked about receiving feedback from the directors on how best to communicate with the public, and we welcome that input to provide the messaging for the questions that you're receiving. You're the eyes and ears for the SCRD, and you interact with the public. So staff is always open and welcoming comments on how to better communicate in a manner that the public gets the information that's required. So we sincerely appreciate that input. And if I could just speak to the motion itself, we certainly, despite whatever happens with the motion, the elements in the motion are certainly being looked at by staff from a technical perspective. And if these reports or information are needed to be gathered to better assess our conditions going forward, we'll certainly do that. Obviously, we welcome all information to make better decisions.
Thank you. I think I will go to Director White. He hasn't had a say yet. Have you? Oh, sorry. Okay, so Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I asked for the motion to be severed because I felt that they're separate topics and they both warrant discussion, independent of each other. I am quite supportive of the first motion that's here. I think a lot of the work that's being asked for is work that our staff have already done. I think that it's work that's been reported out in bits and pieces. But I don't think it's anything that we've necessarily seen sort of communicated in a single place. That when we get members of the public asking, what are you doing about water? We can go there, right there. That's the document you need to read. I mean, the fact that we've got people here, we didn't have people here this morning, right? That speaks to the water aspect of things. So I think, from a work perspective, it probably is going to be a fair bit of work to pull it into one report. But I think a lot of the work has already been done and is in various reports. You know, when we look at the water forecasting based on various supplies, and you know, whether it's 3,000 cubic meters a day from Church Road or 4,600 or nothing, I know that I'm going to throw the chair under the bus here for a sec. I know that he's put together a very good spreadsheet, looking at, you know, it's a calculator, really. And so, you know, if one of our own members of the board can put something like that together, I think it should be attainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Toth. Thank you for your faith in me. I'm afraid it's an uninformed guess, but I would be happy to share it with the experts if it would help. It was something that gave me a little bit of comfort, though. So thank you. I now will move to Director McMahon, please.
Yes, I in fact like Director Gabias's suggestion that we should have some sort of a water dashboard with like charts and graphs and just simple, easy to digest state of the water information. And then for the people who want to do the deeper dive, there are a lot of reports and there is a lot of information out there. It is not the easiest to digest. Especially if you don't have a background in engineering or utilities or something. But the real question is, you know, how can we get more water ASAP? And that's really where I would prefer to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Bax? No? So, Director McMahon, your hand is up. Sorry? It's not up, not anyway. Okay, so we are still on number 1. The motion, oh, yes. Director Henderson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was anticipating you would say some more first about your views, and then I would jump in. So if you, I don't want to take your time.
Well, my views are rather removed from it, seeing I'm in Pender Harbor. But the other side of it is that I've looked at all these reports very seriously, and I take the responsibility very seriously to try and get water for Sechelt. I have sisters, relatives, cousins, all living in Sechelt, so there's no shortage of feedback to me. And I do get to pay through the Egmont and Earls Cove function, so whatever we do, we share the financial burden. So I will offer an opinion then, seeing you ask. I look through this, and I can see where all of these things should be reported in one form or another for us. And from reading all the reports, I can see where the information probably exists. I don't know just how much work it would be to pull it together and add whatever was missing. But I did make the comment earlier that on April 6th, and perhaps it's because of the fact I had other reports in front of me when I was reading it, I might have read a lot into that report that wasn't actually there, you know, because if you already know, you tend to do that. But I thought that if we were to add a few lines and a few data to that April 6th report, it would meet the requirements of the first motion. And knowing, though, that you got to take a guess at that second one, because the second one, and I know we're not talking about it yet, but updating the 2018 water demand is a big task. It took a lot to make it in the first place. And to update it again is a big task. And I know we have it on the books to do. And it will be done eventually, but it's been prioritized to where it would fit into our future plans and we would need it. So for me right now, we're into where we need to have a report and take some guesses. So I tend to agree with you. The thing only thing in my mind is the when and what, and how would it fit into a work plan to make sense without disrupting or with minimal disruption to our organization. Definitely don't want to stop delivering the water because you're shooting yourself. And it's of all the things that it's most important to do is to get the dam water and do whatever we can to get the dam water and keep it there for when the drought occurs. So that's my thoughts on it. Not ready to make a motion or change a motion, though. I'll leave that up to you guys. So Director Henderson, please.
Thank you, Chair. You said we need to get the dam water. It occurs to me we got to keep the water behind the dam. It's a cute little phrase, but it's actually very, very serious. I've said this a few times. I've made myself unpopular around the table. I'm sure the staff are frustrated. But we don't seem to get the risks where we're at, and we keep talking about, well, we're working so hard, we got priorities, we got this, we got that. There's nothing more important than water, other than oxygen. So with respect, I don't care about the other priorities. I care about us having contingencies. If the worst happens, you use the word drought. Others around the table and on staff have used the word drought. What do? We're not prepared. At least I haven't been told that we're prepared. The preamble to my motion outlines things that are still pending. They all align and come together. We still don't know if that's enough water. It hasn't been measured. So I fully agree with Director Gabius's dashboard comment. I'd love to have something simple, but you only make something simple by having all the complex data to back it up. Just ponder that for a minute. We don't just create a quick cartoon of the situation and have it valid without having a whole lot of backup data. So I'm sorry, but we've got to push harder. We've had so many failed starts on things like Church Road. We need confidence as this board. I believe that we have the backup plans in place. We have the contingency plans in place. And I reference point E of my the first part, at the top, near the top of page 34. We need to start publicizing our contingency plans. And we haven't talked about that too much. So I don't know why we're spending time on this. We should be approving it and getting staff to get on and get this done, or getting the people, if they're too busy or they don't have the staff complement or skill set to complete it, let's find somebody and let's find them now. We don't have time to wait. We're at May already. We're at stage 1 essentially this weekend. Stage 2 will probably come in early June. And after that stage, who knows? I was given a report this morning that we're 60% below our water levels 2 years ago. Now, I want to emphasize, I haven't verified that, but it wasn't just a random comment in a coffee shop. Somebody's done some research. If our numbers are even close to that much lower, we're in serious trouble. And here we are debating whether we're going to spend time on water. We need to do this, and we need to do it now. Thank you.
Whoops, got to get the button on. I think I will go to our CEO. You have a comment?
I guess I just wanted to reemphasize something that GM Brown said, and actually the other comment that was just made. I do not know what 60% less water levels could possibly mean. Is it the snowpack? Like, we have the reservoirs are full. I don't know where the 60% less water would be. That's a side comment. What I will say is the bulk of our work, while we may hope that the weather's better this year than the last 2 years. Our work is based on it being at least as bad or worse. And we have a finite amount of resources to do that work. The work that our staff are doing right now is designed to keep every liter of water behind that dam we can, every day that we can do it this year. I'm not sure, frankly, what amount of additional studies are going to change the work that we're already doing. Everything we can do to preserve liters of water behind that dam is what our staff are doing. And if we do more studies, it will have an impact on the same people who are going to stop doing that work and start doing more studies. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, CAO. Sound a little passionate. It's appreciated. Director Stamford, please.
I think in the end, we're often talking about different ways of communication. I mean, this motion here is a form of communication. It's outlined the director's sense of what the reality is and emphasized certain things and de-emphasized other things. A lot of the items that are being asked for, we have discussed. They are in the April 6th report. I'm sure they will be again in the next monthly report. We have to be really careful that we're not being inflammatory unnecessarily. We speak to drought, we speak to emergencies. We also need to look at the bigger picture that we're in a different reality. This is long-term. This isn't just about this summer. It isn't just about a report coming next week or a specific date. We have to keep moving ahead in the way that we can support our constituents in a way they understand. And also, we're here also in part that we believe in the statistics and the information that our staff are giving us. And quite often I find this type of discussion is in a way, it's just challenging that we don't believe the staff and that they are not correct. And that, in a way, is what we're being asked to acknowledge. So I, in this particular case, will not be supportive of motion 1 because I think it takes us down an avenue that we're just getting more information and not actually following through on the actions that we've already agreed to in our previous meetings.
Thank you, Director Stamford. Yes, Director. Oh, okay. Thank you, Director Henderson. Director Bax.
Well, if I was to ask staff if this, if either of these motions would help them to create, to help them improve our water system, improve our access to water, improve our water storage, I wonder what the answer would be. Would these motions actually help them do the work that needs to be done? Would it help them prepare for the work that needs to be done? Or is the work that they did last year to help us maintain water, did that prepare them more for the work that needs to be done?
That was a question. Yes. Who would like to answer that? Yes, GM, please.
Yes, well, thank you for the question. I think as I stated earlier, the elements of the resolution are been considered by staff as inputs to further reports. We will glean, some of the information that's already been provided, but if there's indeed data that needs to be collected to make better predictions, which is contained in the resolution, we'll certainly take that into consideration when developing future modeling and future reports. So to answer Director Bax's question, yes, a lot of the motion will be helpful for staff. However, as stated previously, it's just a matter of the time to assemble that into reports and gather information is really what we're talking about. And when I speak about priorities, I'm talking about not priorities other than water. I'm talking about the priorities that the staff already working on projects, as was stated by Director Stanford, that we're already working on. So we are getting Church Road well underway as soon as we can. We are working at providing and getting agreement with Gibson's. We are working with the province on siphons and reducing the EFN. We are working on the Langdale well. We are going to be doing an RFP to do further well exploration. So all the projects that the board has already provided direction on, those are the priorities of staff. That would be the same people that would be compiling this information and putting it back in a form that's in a different report than we've already done. But having said that, if there's information, as I stated, that would be valuable in preparing further capital plans or further operational procedures, that's welcomed. And while I have the mic, we also have Manager Edward informed me that the WASAC meeting is going to be talking about communications, including looking at new graphics for the public and how that's better conveyed. So it's very timely that that was brought forward.
Thank you for reminding me of our Citizens Committee that's helping us with those aspects. They're a good group, quite representative. Yes, Director White, please.
I struggle with this motion a bit because, as I said, I do look at it and it does read to me like a reasonable framework of the kind of reporting that we would expect to get in the summer, especially when staff fully realizes that we could be in an emergency situation and the board may need to make quick decisions as in the past, and we'll need the data to do so. So on one hand, I see that. On the other hand, I think I come to governance in general from a very different perspectives from some of my colleagues around the table, and I'm very much kind of a big picture kind of governor. Especially when I really appreciate our chair's eye for details because it's not the way that I generally approach the role, and it's good to have diversity in those approaches. So I'm not one to make really detailed one-by-one kind of motions like this, and I'm more comfortable in working with some discretion, providing general guidance to staff, offering discretion on what is important to report and what's reasonable to report, and knowing in that they are consistently, regularly taking our input as a board every couple weeks. So coming from that perspective, I'm much more comfortable with a more general motion. And I'll propose to amend the motion. And I know probably not everyone's going to be happy with this, but I'll give it a shot. And that is that the board requests staff to return to providing public updates to the board on water supply and conservation on a monthly basis, and consider each point in the notice of motion of April 20th, 2023 from Director Henderson when doing so. Section 1, sorry. Okay. If
Hang on, it's,
section 1 needs to be added, yeah, right. But,
Section.
I'm okay with the whole thing. Yeah.
This is, I believe you're making a amendment to the first motion.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
I'm trying to make it more just, it's still the same
more general.
intent, but more general, more concise.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Yes, we do have a seconder, so it's now on the floor. So it's open for discussion. Director Bax, please.
All right, I appreciate the director's approach, and I appreciate the Director Henderson's bringing these type of things to our attention again, and it needs to be brought to our attention pretty much every time we meet. I have a hard time supporting anything that's going to cause staff to start putting other things aside. I know they are already prioritizing the water situation, and I don't want to see too much staff time taken up. If the director's amendment to the motion is to take into account the points A through E, I'm still not sure if I can, I think it would have to be a guideline to staff, not something that they would have to check off every box. Okay, anyway, I can't support these motions. I know that staff is working hard to give us the information that we need.
Thank you. I didn't hear a question there. Director McMahon?
Yes, I appreciate Director White's attempt to simplify this whole thing. Another thing that people don't ask me for is more process at local government, so I do get that. The motion specifies reporting to the board. With that, normally the water reports are coming to committee of the whole. So was that an intent? Just asking.
I did hear a question from Director McMahon. I'm not sure that it was an amendment, though. It was a comment.
Second that amendment to the amendment, let's just do it.
Point of order,
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
I would like clarity from the corporate officer. I believe that the amendment sort of exceeds what we can do to tinker with a motion. I think that the amendment would be better suited as an entirely new motion if this current motion doesn't proceed.
I do not know any about that, so I shall ask our corporate officer.
Thank you for the question. So if I'm understanding the question, the intent of the initial motion put forward is different than the amendment putting forward. So the first motion that was moved onto the floor is requesting a report by a timeline at a meeting. The director's amendment requests a report. Is it more in a verbal form? Like what is the intention of that, if we're going to get that specific about it? And while I have the microphone, I will confirm voting for you. So when we do vote on this, it's going to be administration and operation of a service, which means service participants will vote. It will be a weighted vote. District of Seashelt, area A, B, D, E, F.
So now I believe if that is correct, and I should check.
This is a governance issue about reporting to the board.
Sorry, hang on, Director White. I just was looking for clarification.
So
I was going to ask if that's the case. Does that mean that Director White could not make the motion?
can we,
Yes.
please?
The answer to that is yes?
I would request a recess, please.
Oh, yes, okay, thank you. We do need a recess then to get this all straightened out, and I think it's a good time to get a coffee anyways. What would we like? 7 minutes? Okay, thank you. We'll take a short recess then. Good afternoon, everybody. We have returned from our break, and we're back to the regular board meeting of April 27th, 2023. Sorry? Oh, okay. Going to be a minute to be back in. The first thing I'd like to mention is that we did not put the voting down on the agenda like we should have. So the chair has made a slight error here. And because our director from the town of Gibsons is not in the voting, he's fully welcome to visit on, to comment on the items that we talk about and make suggestions. But any motion has to be made by one of the participants in the service. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then I'd like to take us back to where we were, which is the first motion that Director Henderson had made. And that first motion is actually in the agenda cover page itself. And the reason I mention that is because it's numbered differently. It's numbered 1A to E, and then repeated, then it's another point that's labeled A to D, and in total there is 9 points in that motion. So everybody's okay where we are now? Okay. Now, the question was asked, is the suggested wording that was put forward substantially different than what's in here? And the chair is ruling no, it's not. So, but it's not a valid motion yet. But I would ask if our recording secretary could read that wording back out for us, please. Yes, from Director White.
That the board requests staff to return to providing public updates to the board on water supply and conservation on a monthly basis and consider each point in the notice of motion of April 2023 when doing so.
Okay. Would anybody like to make that motion? Yes, I see Director Bax made the motion and Director McMahon has seconded it. So that motion is on the floor, and we're now open for discussion. Would anybody like to talk to that motion? It's a new motion. It's a motion. It's an amended motion. Yep. Yes. No? Okay, so we are then ready to vote on it, on the amendment. So, all those in favor? All those opposed? Director Toth and Director Henderson are opposed. That would pass? That would pass with the voting then. So the amended motion is now on the floor. And we shall vote, well, we shall discuss the amended motion, I guess, with a new motion now. So, Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I did support the original motion, number 1, A through E, A through D. I don't know that I support the motion as amended. I believe that it has gone too far the other way in terms of vagueness. So I will be voting against it in the hopes that we might be able to bring back the original motion. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have a question before we vote? Would it be appropriate to ask staff a question? I would like to ask, my concern is I'd like to know that if it's too onerous and the staff, what staff think about the ability to deliver on that motion. If I could have comments, please.
I'm happy to start, and if GM Brown wants to add, that's fine. The motion as amended staff would be happy to provide the reports as requested. Considering the lenses, the additional lenses that we'd be providing by factoring in those points that were in the original motion as part of the presentations. The next presentation is planned for May 11th, I believe. And one thing we could find out on May 11th, based on the report provided with these additional lenses in mind, is the report that you receive on May 11th satisfying the intent of the amended motion that you may provide us?
Thank you. I think, because if I may make a comment before we vote, I think these elements that are very valid, and I would like to see them in the report, and I just don't want to stop staff. I'd like them to come as you guys can deliver them, but as soon as practical. So that's my comments. Director or GM Brown, further comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the May 15th date may be problematic, though, if that's adopted. Just to be frank, to cover all of that by May 15th would not be possible. But as CAO McKinley said, during the presentation for May 11th, there'll be a number of elements in there. And what we would be hopeful for, if the board is receptive to just changing the deadline to the May 25th board meeting, that would give us some extra time to actually produce all of the elements that's requested.
I guess, yes.
For information.
Director White?
So I'm sorry, I can't connect by Zoom right now, but I think it's okay for me to participate in person.
Oh, yes, we can see you.
That might sound hypocritical of me these days, but I believe that this motion has already been amended to not have any mention of May 15th. So I just wanted to, yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask that. I didn't see a May 15th date in that.
My apologies, I stand corrected.
Yes, thank you. I don't see any further hands up. So now we can vote on, oh, yes, Director Henderson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I brought this up because we need to get into action. I've been saying that since December when I first asked for these sort of details. So I actually am going to support the motion because we don't need to spend more time talking about it, process stuff, debating, hearing excuses, whatever you want to talk about. We need to get into action. So I'll support this and rely on the board and staff to deliver what we need. I mean, I want to remind everybody, the data is to allow us to communicate to the public. The dashboard's a great kind of imagery for us to focus on, but you can't provide it without the data. And we need a lot more than we've been able to get so far. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. That's good. Any further comments? So are we prepared to vote on the amended motion? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Yes, Director Toth? Yes, okay, thank you. Now we have the second portion of that motion, and it's starts on number 2 on page 2 of our agenda, just so we're all on the same page with the same words, if everybody's good with that. And Director Henderson, could you introduce that second part for us? Did you do that already? You're happy?
I spoke to it, Chair, but again, it's more work, but at the end of the day, we owe it to our public to be given that they have some clarity on the magnitude of what we're facing. And when you look at the data, and I guess the spreadsheets that I hear about, your magic spreadsheets, I'm sure they would help, seriously, because we've got a huge deficit, and and I don't know, a deficit in terms of how much water do we actually need to solve this. I go back to the preamble, which is not part of the formal motion, but we have a policy that the previous board, I guess, maybe in the board before this, set that this community would never go past stage 2. That is not being adhered to, we're not following it, and we're not even so far defining how much, and this is what point 2 here references, we're not even describing how much water do we need somehow, somewhere, to stay at no worse than stage 2 forever. And so that's what this is about. I threw in the raw water reservoir, but frankly, I don't care if the water is stored in an aquifer, in a lake, or in some newfangled gadget that somebody invents. But we need to know how big that gadget has to be. So that's what this is about. Thank you.
Thank you. That was quite clear. Director Bax.
Through the chair to staff, is this information already something that is being contemplated? Is it going to be, I understand the timeline's a bit onerous, but should we just change 2023 to 2024? Is it something that's already going to be looked at by staff in the next conceivable future?
My quick research prior discovered that, yes, it's in a work plan, but perhaps staff could clarify that for me, for us. Make sure I'm right, in other words.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You're correct. The first one was talk about updating the 2018 water demand analysis. It is in the work plan, however, it's not been actioned yet, again, with the other priorities we're working on. The second part, which talk about the water reservoir, we actually have retained a consultant, and we are looking at what would involve changing the terms of reference to expand the scope to include what's in 2A. And 2B, that I'd be reluctant to comment on a timeline or a cost on that, because again, that would require a third party, really is through the RFP process, et cetera, and consultants for all of this. It's not within staff's purvey to have all this data when we have consultants retained already for previous studies that would be asked to expand their scope. Then the timeline for them, they'd have to get back to us on. While I have the mic, though, I'd just like to clarify one thing. On the stage 2 being a policy, that was actually discussed as part of the policy framework as a goal, but it's never been adopted by the board to actually be a policy to keep within stage 2.
Thank you. That's new information because it was done before my time, so we inherited it. Yes. Director Henderson, your hand was up first.
Well, I guess that's for a reason. I think it should be a policy. It should be something that this board should move quickly to recommend. There is money available, grant funding and the rest to deal with these things. We know from previous recent projects how much more things cost when we don't get them done quickly. Let's make it the policy. It should be. I would prefer, we've got water everywhere, so why do we even contemplate stage 2, much less 3 and 4? So let's make it a policy, and let's start the work to solve the long-term problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Director Stamford, please.
I found a number of these ideas in motion 2 ideal to go to the water summit. I actually question what that policy of staying at stage 2 is and what the value of it is. I'm not sure it's applicable to the new reality that we're facing, and would like to hear much more about whether or not that is something we still want to adhere to. And as I see, it's a framework. It isn't necessarily a policy. I wasn't able to find it, the specifics of it in the background. So I need to know a lot more, and I'd like to see that kind of question go to the Water Summit.
Thank you. Could staff comment on that idea, please?
Thank you, Chair. What I can say is that the preliminary discussions with the planning team moving towards Water Summit 3 planned for May 25th, Thursday, May 25th, I believe. We have been discussing the elected officials having the opportunity to really wrestle with what is the relationship of residents of the Sunshine Coast with water, especially in relation to the values that were expressed and will be continued to be brought up at the next summit. I would think that discussion is definitely in scope of some of the questions that might be brought to you for your consideration at summit number 3.
I think I got that. Director Stanford, were you okay with that? Yes, thank you. Director Toth, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for staff, hopefully, and then I actually have an amendment that I'd like to make to this recommendation, or this motion. I don't support it as it is, but based on the answer I receive and the motion, the amendment I may make. So my question is, do we have an estimated timeline on reporting back on the next phases of the raw water reservoir development? I know we were talking about, I think geotechnical test drilling is happening next. I think we were going to be getting an update in the next month or so, but I just looked to staff for confirmation on that. Thank you.
Yes, I believe my understanding was second quarter of this year, but we'll go to staff and see what the answer to that one is.
Yes, thank you for the question. I don't have an exact date for you. I can certainly bring that back to the board, and the project manager is not here right now, so I could certainly ask him after this meeting.
Thank you. I'm not sure that helps you, Director Toth, but...
You know, it doesn't necessarily help, but it also doesn't necessarily hurt what I'm about to say next. So I would like to make an amendment to this motion. I don't believe a raw water reservoir has the same urgency as knowing where our current shortages are, where our current needs are. You know, even if we approved a reservoir tomorrow, it wouldn't be built by the summer. So I would like to strike the first 6 words off the motion and replace them with, as part of the 2023 work plan, comma, that staff produce and provide, etc.
And for clarity, would you be striking A and B out of that as well then?
Literally the first 6 words of the resolution that's there and replacing them.
Okay.
I'm just getting rid of the June 15th.
Okay, would
timeline, right?
you leave A and B in then?
Yes, my recommendation is just to change the first 6 words.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarity because it's, your comments at the first confused me a little, so. Okay. We have a motion then on the floor. Now I need a seconder, sorry. We have a proposed motion. I need a seconder. Okay, Director Bax has seconded that. And Director Henderson, your hand is up. I was wondering, were you looking to speak again and you were first up, or?
Thank you, Chair. No, this time I will not speak. Thank you.
Okay, good. I assumed that, but I should have checked first. Okay, so Director McMahon, please.
Yes, while all of this information is important, I feel that we are, even with the broader timeline, we are sort of micromanaging the process here. In regards to stage 2, I'm very happy to hear that it's not a policy, it's more of an aspiration. And I think all of us aspire to have abundant water. But we're going to have to look very seriously at how much water is enough. And how much cost is too much in order to provide this. We use water, I mean, people use water to wash their driveways, treated drinking water. And that's crazy, in my view. Our water usage is excessive in many areas. At the same time, we do need abundant water for things like agriculture, which we would like to improve. And firefighting, of course, we always want as much water as we can get for emergency response. So I think that we have broader conversations coming forward about what our goals are in terms of supplying water. And some of those conversations are going to unfortunately have to wait until all the water meters are in and we actually have the full data on how water is currently being used, how many more leaks we can resolve, and we have instituted volumetric billing, which is a well-known disincentive to excessive water use. And there may be other conversations too, like about sources of non-potable water and how they might be used to reduce some of our, another one, we use potable water to irrigate some of the playing fields, and that's hardly necessary. So it's a big and complicated piece, and I appreciate the difficulty that staff have producing reports that are easy to read when there is so much data and so much complexity involved in the situation. So appreciating the intent of this motion, I will nonetheless vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Bax, please.
I like that. Appreciating the intent of the motion, I will vote against it. And I'll echo those sentiments. I think that when it asks for information in the last 5 years, that information, because we're in such a changing time, is not going to really help us. Again, it's asking staff asking for staff time to get us information that may or may not be useful. And right now, I just can't support this.
Yes, Director Toth, please.
This is a point of order, Chair. We're dealing with an amendment right now, not the main motion.
Ooh.
So director's comments should be focused on the change in the date. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Toth, for bringing us back to a little reality here. I appreciate that. So we have an amended motion, an amendment to the motion on the floor, and it's seconded. And as Director Toth mentions, we should be talking about the amendment. Or if there's no more discussion, then we should vote on it. I see no more discussion, so we shall vote. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion? Any opposed to the amendment to the motion? No. Oh, yes, Director McMahon. Okay, so we now have an amended motion on the floor, and we can go back to our discussions. Thank you for keeping us on track, Director Toth. Okay. Any further comments on the amended motion? Okay, so we will call the vote on that. All those in favor? Okay. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3 opposed. And this is the same voting weight that we had before. So how did we do?
Can I see hands again, please, for opposed?
Okay, there was 3 opposed, and they were all rural directors.
It passes.
Okay, thank you. Good, we've done this. Wow. I shall ask, would you like the votes recorded? Yes? Okay. Thank you. Ah, awesome. We have no bylaws, and so now we're to the director's favorite part, and that is the director's reports. Yes, Director Toth, sure. I've never had a person volunteer before.
I know, it's rare for somebody to volunteer. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I shall record that you're first.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Excellent report. Yes, short, succinct. Thank you. So just so I don't get lost, I'm going to go start. You want to go this way? Okay, we're going to go this way. So, Director Bax, please.
Yes, so we did the AVICC. That was great. Learned lots of things. We had the Municipal Finance Authority come and visit us. That was as well. And I sat in on the Islands Trust SCRD. Sorry, yeah, that's right, Islands Trust. And I sat in on PTAC this week. Again, very interesting. I had a good discussion yesterday with the president of the One Straw Society. I'm keeping my eyes on how this farmland water situation shakes out, and I'm keeping them involved. I also discussed with an arts group known as The Only Animal, a motion that they're going to bring forward, that they want me to bring forward to write a letter of support for them for an art piece they're going to do in the forest. Wonderful group, Only Animal. I participated in the Earth Day celebrations at Roberts Creek last weekend. It was a little rainy, but I do want to commend the staff of the Parks Department for the work that they managed to get done at the parking lot there. We had a large lake that we were thinking of having a regatta, but instead we had a parking lot, which was wonderful. And besides that, I'll be at the Gumboot Cafe on Saturday to have my constituency office, as per usual.
Sounds like a great place to have a constituency office. Just a little question, an arts piece in the forest.
So
is that a forest gnome?
So the Only Animal is trying to get permission from the Ministry of Forests and Infrastructure to use an acre of clear cut to plant trees in an artistic fashion, and they call it the 1,000-Year Forest Project. I'm still waiting on the details, but when it comes, I will bring it forward to the board, and they're asking for a letter of support to help move it forward. They're on a 2-year waiting list with the Ministry of Forests to get a use of this piece of land here on the Sunshine Coast.
Thank
and
you.
they want to speed that up.
Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. Yes, Director Gabius, please.
Remind me to sit somewhere else next time. I always have to follow Director Bax. It's always so hard. What could I say? Well, AVICC, I wanted to first congratulate Director McMahon for acclamation as electoral area representative at the AVICC. Here. And Seashell Public Library had their board meeting this week. I unfortunately was not able to attend, but I would like to direct everybody to their director's reports that are on their on their website. They are getting more Daisy readers, which is great. If you or someone you love have little or no vision, or have dexterity issues or other cognitive challenges, these will be a great resource. So yeah, the library always doing amazing work. I also would like to say that I'm a lucky participant of the BC Climate Leadership Coaching Program with Andrea Reimer, and this week at a webinar we talked about power mapping and building coalitions, and I'm just putting it out there for other directors. If you'd like some resources, I'm happy to share them, and that is it for me.
Thank you. That was interesting. Yes. Director McMahon, please.
Yes, and of course, I also was at AVICC. I organized the electoral area directors lunch, at which, to my surprise, the hot topic turned out to be APCs. And I will be following up with other with the rest of the 55 electoral area directors in AVICC. I also chaired the emergency panel, at which GM Brown was one of the speakers. It wasn't as exciting as we had hoped, as the new legislation has not yet dropped. And I will be following up on the initiative about legislative reform for regional districts. I attended the emergency route planning session for the Bay Bluff area in Gibsons that Director White was also at. There are 3 plans, emergency route planning plans, that are on the SCRD website for anybody who wants to take a look at them. At the Fire Commission meeting for the Gibsons and District Fire Commission, a couple of major themes were the growth of demand for fire services with more call-outs and, of course, more complex training and regulations, and the fact that we don't have a plan going forward for how to manage emergency services such as fire services on the Sunshine Coast, in part because, of course, they're run by separate fire departments. And the pumper truck purchase will be coming our way soon. It raised questions for me about procurement, which unfortunately I didn't get to in our lunch and learn session today. On April 21st, I attended the Howe Sound Forum hosted by the town of Gibsons, and it was nice to see all the folks from all the local governments in Howe Sound, plus our MP and our MLA. And if there's any really riveting details, I'll leave those to Director Stamford to report on. I did attend Earth Day in Roberts Creek. I think the date is chosen to be equally foul in the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. The Islands Trust Joint SCRD meeting, PTAC, very good discussion about solid waste challenges. I thought the committee is coming together really well. Some very capable people and well-informed. I attended my APC last night. That also was a really interesting meeting, and again, I'm fortunate to have some very capable and well-informed people. And I'm hoping, if the weather stays nice and I can get a few more things done, to go to April Tools on Saturday.
Yeah. Yes, Director Stamford, please.
Thank you, Chair. I attended many of the meetings that other people have attended, but I did not attend AVICC. Maybe next year. I attended the Gibsons and Fire Protection meeting. I learned more about what fire trucks can and cannot do going uphill, downhill, and flat than I ever expected to know, and I think we will learn more and more in the next few weeks. I attended the Howe Sound Community Forum last Friday. One of the outstanding action items for the is that the biosphere, the UNESCO biosphere, is looking for a regional representative for their committee, organizational committee. So I think that's a discussion with the Sunshine Coast Regional District, Gibsons, and Islands Trust. I've seen a number of sources have indicated that Burnco, a gravel pit proposal, is not being accepted for a processing application again. So therefore, that particular proposal is no longer consideration for the McNabb Creek area, which for the residents in the area, including those people on the island, is good news, but it still implies that there will be further projects to consider on that large, important piece of property. I attended the BC Ferries Route 3 meeting. There's a new program coming forward for assured loading for medical appointments. I think there's been adjustments in how that program is managed. There was the IT SCRD joint meeting. Just a quick point that not all the regional district and Islands Trust joint meetings go that smoothly, and that's much appreciated by Islands Trust board and staff. And finally, Area F APC, we had another very engaging meeting, and our youngest attendee, who was surprisingly easygoing, was 1 month old. Thank you.
Did the 1 month old get to vote? No. Yes, Director White, please.
I will report that democracy is thriving in Gibsons. We've had really excellent public engagement these first number of months of our term. More people engaging in person at our public dialogue sessions. We've had 3 of them. Then I think I'm sure the last 2 terms of our councils combined, just for those early months. It's been just tremendous engagement, input from our community. We just even more recently received a tremendous amount of input to a development proposal, public hearing, which is excellent, getting so much input. And our council's working excellently together. Our last couple of meetings have been outstanding, and just reaching compromises and consensus, and coming up with some very rational responses, I think, to proposals. So happy to report all that, and also connected to that, we've got our strategic plan is getting close to being finished. Where we received a lot of community input into that too with one of our dialogue sessions. We're taking it out to staff to get staff input, and hopefully it'll go public within the next month.
Wow, thank you. I was following your public engagement, and it's very interesting, and it seems a lot tamer now, yes. And I think it's good to have those kind of opportunities, though, as well. That's very interesting. I did attend. Let's. Yeah, I think you want to go last. So yes, okay. I did attend the MFA presentation. I found it excellent. It's could be a dry subject, but our presenter made it very interesting. I was quite happy with it. I was a little apprehensive going in, because it was my second time. I'm figuring by the time I have it the third time, I'll actually understand it, which would be really cool. Very impressed with the chair of our Islands Trust meeting, our recent Islands Trust meeting. Thank you very much, Director Stamford. That was absolutely great job. I attended part of the PTAC, but unfortunately I got pulled away, but I was the alternate anyways, so I'm okay. And I had our Area A APC last night. It went very well. We have a couple of new members to go with the returning members. Pender Harbour, we lost one of our directors, or one of their members early on for a particular Pender Harbour issue. It was getting dark and he had to drive his boat across the lake, so he had to skip out early. I was chuckling to myself. At least we don't, just Kate has that problem here. So that's my report, and I would like to ask Director Henderson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I guess, first of all, I want to comment that Seashell, we're dealing with things that are, well, you may have read in the paper, I think it was last night, somebody tried ostensibly to blow up a building with a vehicle and a bunch of propane tanks. And that's a consequence of mental health and homelessness, and it's the fast work of first responders that made sure things didn't get any worse. But it is a significant, obviously, event in terms of how are we going to deal with this? And it hasn't even begun for this year. So we, for being in the center of the community perhaps and on a bus line and all those things, I expect we're going to be dealing with that very, very significantly. The impact on our staff, on our community is huge, and the downloading that continues from the province is something that I will be focusing more and more with the province on. The other thing I wanted to let the board know is this is my last meeting as the representative. Council last night approved a motion to appoint Councillor Darren Inkster as the representative. I committed when I was elected to serving for 6 months, and during that time I would fix the short-term water supply. Well, I'm going to do one of those two. I'm honoring the 6 months. I don't feel that I fixed the water supply. I know how to do it, but I can't do it alone. So I wish all of you well. I will remain as the alternate, so you will see me perhaps occasionally, and I hope that we can see some success in some of the challenges that are not light or simple, but what matters most of all, I suggest, is that we need action. I think we get on and do things, it saves us money. If we keep talking about them and waiting and studying and going in circles, we've seen that too often in our short time in office this term. It just costs us a lot more money. So my best wishes to all of you, and well, perhaps I shouldn't say that. Who knows, I might see you next week as the alternate. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. I've got everybody. Yes, there's none on the Zoom. Okay, thank you. That actually completes the open portion, but I would like to see if there is any questions from anyone in the gallery. Yes? Could you come to the mic so we can, because we're on, we need to capture you on the video part. Audio, just audio? Oh.
Hello, my name's Tom Beck. I was here last time. I come interested in water primarily, and I just make a few comments. In 4.5 years is how long I've had my head in this water situation, since 2018. And in the 4.5 years since 2018, not one new drop of supply has been found or added to the Chapman water system. That's in 4.5 years, with the possible exception of the work that the SCRD staff have done on leak reduction. So that's new supply. And then what I came here today for was to hopefully hear something about how we're doing with the possibility of the EFN reduction and a possibility of like when Church Road well will turn on. And the reason I bring those two up is I'm a very simple person, and when I think about the water situation and what is available to us today to physically do for water in 2023, this summer, there's only 3 things that we can do for the Chapman system possibly. One is to turn on Church Road well. One is the possibility of the EFN reduction. And the other is to step up what we're doing with leak detection and leak reduction. Though, as far as, and possibly there's some more water to be gotten from Gibson's. But those 3 are the physical 3 things that are available to be done this summer. And And so my question, which I didn't hear the answer to today, is when I think about Church Road Well, my understanding is that it possibly is going to get turned on in June, I think, at 3,000 cubic meters per day. I guess I would ask the question, my understanding is that with some additional pump or whatever in there, pumping capacity, it has the possibility of 5,000 cubic meters a day. So I look at it and say, what would be the timeline on ramping that up and the cost? So that's one thing. The other is, how are we doing with the possibility of an EFN reduction at the time when there's no salmon? Because I read an interesting letter in the Coast Reporter last Friday that told me, gee, there could be another 25 days of water available to us. And it's always struck me with the EFN that the staff works with Victoria, but somewhere, if you get trouble from Victoria, it strikes me that you need the board on board somehow to help the staff with Victoria. And so I'm always surprised when I attend these meetings that nobody's ever asking about the EFN, which is free water and our lowest hanging fruit right now, if it's done in a responsible way that doesn't threaten aquatic life. And so I was hoping today to hear how we're doing with EFN. What are the roadblocks, and how's it going? So that's my question.
Thank you. You're very knowledgeable on the situation. Yes.
I've been working on it since 2018, and I will tell you that, just in case you want to know, that 2018 water report from Integrated Sustainability, don't take this the wrong way, but when I was working professionally, I came across an expression that starting from random point and proceeding with great accuracy. Now think about that for a minute. And the reason I say that is that report is a very detailed report and analysis, but it really does start from 4 or 5 major pieces of information, data that you have to put in, and then it proceeds in great detail. And that data, it can be quite random. And when he did that report in 2018, he took the worst possible drought condition from the beginning of May till the end of October. So it's kind of interesting that the drought condition that 2018 report was based on somewhat replicates last year, a worse situation. And I spent 3 days and I spreadsheeted that report in an interactive spreadsheet that you can actually put in additional water coming in through wells or whatever, and change the consumption and change the EFN. And so I'm quite into it. I presented it to the Seashell Council last year and to the SCRD, and nobody picked up the ball and ran with it, and that quite disappoints me. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, somebody did. Mine sounds very similar to yours. Thank you. I don't know that we can answer your questions, though. CAO, would you like to take a chance at that, a shot at that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. The subject matter experts, the true subject matter experts are not in the room. However, I can acknowledge that if we have not sent the request to the province looking for an EFN reduction, we're in the process of doing so very quickly. We're also going to be meeting. To do that, it's not enough to just ask the province. We need support of the nation as well. And we're going to be speaking with the nation about that probably and ideally ahead of the water summit. We agree that an early reduction in EFN would be a powerful tool in keeping water behind the dam. The Church Road well right now looks very positive for firing up in June. We do have the larger VFDs, variable frequency devices, And so we're what are they, Alton? Variable frequency drives, and we're hoping for the larger pumps. If the larger pumps show up before the water stops flowing over the dam, we should be able to get them installed and commissioned, which would give us up to, I believe, 4.6 million liters a day. We're banking with the existing pumps and the VFDs 3.2. We might get a little more, but we feel really confident about 3.2. In addition to that, we're currently working with the town of Gibsons on a water sharing agreement for this year that would see us being able to share water before we enter stage 3 or stage 4. Just like looking at EFN, maybe the time to share that water is earlier than later when it's least needed and we can preserve the water behind the dam. The other two that I can think of that we are working on for this year that may lead to additional supply is additional works at Grey Creek. And we've also got the application in to be able to keep the siphons in, which is actually a really important tool as well. But that's not approved yet, that we can have those. We've asked for siphons to be able to be used both this year and next, and hopefully incorporated as an annual tool we have at our disposal. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you. I really hope the situation looks extremely more positive by June, but we gotta get the agreements in place and have it in hand before you can make any promises. It's all just hope right now, and that's a hell of a way to operate, but that's where we are. Okay, is there any more questions from the gallery here? No? Moving on to our participants. I don't see any hands up from the attendees, the remote attendees. No hands up, no questions from there. Okay. So we are then going to go in camera. And we're moving in camera in accordance. Yeah, I'm going to ask for a motion. I'm looking for a motion that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with section 90 LK of the, whoa, that's a 1K of the community charter. Could I have a motion for that? Yes, I see a motion. I see a seconder. All in favor? And hang on, I got to, now I need a motion that Christine Alexander, my alternate director for Area A, be authorized to attend the April 27th, 2023 in-camera board meeting. So motion made, seconded, all in favor? Okay, thank you. So we will take a brief recess while we secure the room, and thank you very much for attending. It's nice to have an audience even though they're so quiet. Thank you. We are returning to the regular board meeting of April 27th, 2023. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor? Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Now, if everybody